Good morning. This is Luda Kopikina coming to you for GAI Insights Daily News. We are rating all the news today essential, important, and optional. So, Paul, you're going to start us with the first article, please.
The first, yes, we have a whole slew of articles today from a lot of different vendors. The first one is from Archetype AI about a new model that learns physics.
I got this one.
Yep.
I'll just jump in. So this is really interesting. We continue to see, I guess in some ways you could say, the generative AI landscape evolve as people learn that you can apply this concept to different data sets, right? It was like, oh, we can do it with text. Oh, we can do it with images. We can do it with different things. And now they're discovering that they can do it with data and effectively create a model that understands physics without ever basically teaching it physics, just by giving it the data around it. It's fascinating. It's certainly going to have some very useful applications and implications within the IoT space and all of that, the stuff like that's in the factories and all the sensors that are out there in the world could be very, very powerful. It's pretty new. It's pretty early. And I'd say at this point, it's probably still optional news.
Yeah, I also rated it as optional. However, it is because it's so new, because it's so early. Paul, if you can scroll down, there's a little graph that is quite revealing that, that essentially says, look, it was pre-trained on the physical data, but it can outperform models that was specifically trained for a certain physical domain. So this is quite powerful, right? And when used for specific applications, I think this can advance industrial applications big time. So it's an important thing to monitor, but I hesitated to put it as important for all the readers to know.
It is an interesting thing. It's Stefan Wolfram has been very articulate in the last 4 or 5 years about how nature and reality is more computable than we have thought, and so is our John Sviokla. And I think it's just another indication of it, but optional for now. Next one is from our friends Ethan Mullick.
Yes, this is me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is an article that essentially summarizes about 100 plus articles that he has done in the past. And it goes pretty basic, talking about what LLMs are, how they do token prediction, how they use sentences to predict the next word, and how they use training data and the like. So it's a very basic but very good article if you are new to LLMs and trying to understand how they work. But for our readers, I think they're more sophisticated. I would say it's optional.
Optional as well, Adam?
Adam?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He even says at the beginning there, he says something, I would ask my technical readers for their forgiveness because I will simplify here.
Yeah. Okay. Optional then.
Yeah.
All the next.
Yeah, I do. Good morning to Ram, who's online and was over guest raters on Friday. I am continually reminded, though, that even though that we are now, I think this might be, we got to figure out when we started this. I think we started in November last year. So we're coming up on a year. I've done over 150 shows. How many people are still just getting started in all this here? And we used to have a get started on our corporate website, and we took it down, and I feeling more and more indication we need to at least get it back up there, and this might be a good candidate article for that. But definitely for our audience, optional. Third article is from Meta. This was assigned to me. This one's a whole new set of Meta research that's coming out, different models. They're using the umbrella term Advanced Machine Intelligence, AMI, with a whole bunch of models around segmentation and others. I had this as optional. It continues to show their prowess on the new models on the research side, but for our AI leaders, still very much optional in my view.
Yeah, I agree, but the the spectrum of all the things that they are doing, Meta is really pushing the envelope. I'm really happy to see that they are doing this. A lot of I'd like to experiment with text and speech models, because models forever don't understand me. My accent is a combination of stuff, and I'd love to be dictating and adjusting and the like on in real time. It doesn't work so far, so I'm excited to experiment with this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to me on how quickly the commercial sector has been picking up their models. I mean, we've seen last week or so multiple announcements from NVIDIA and others. I know at a conference 2 weeks ago, there was a CTO in the audience I knew that was somewhat skeptical, and they got pretty excited. And in the conference, Adam, he downloaded, Llama 3 right onto his laptop and started playing with it. And this whole own your own intelligence, and there's options out there for at least get no cost models that are pretty sophisticated. It really all is in large part the whole Meta's effort here.
Even in this article, it mentions it's only been 11 weeks since segment anything model 2 came out, and that already has over 700,000 downloads.
Yeah,
picking up quite quickly.
Just breathtaking. So optional for now.
Yeah.
Third article or fourth article we had were I think this was also signed to me from Lang Chang, forget the gentleman's name, talking about how different ways to look at memory, memory specific. I had this as optional. It's memory is obviously an important topic here. Lang Chang's an important vendor here, but this is a vendor specific announcement.
Well, yes and no. So I found it very descriptive and sort of an educational article. So if you are interested in how the memory is being put together in these models, this is a good article. And there's an underlying paper on this. I think it is worth reading if you're interested in that. And memory, he's right. He is mentioning that memory is one of the key buzzwords of 2024, which is correct, that there was a lot of developments in the memory space. So it's an important space, very important to understand it. And it's a good article as a summary of what has happened, what can happen. So I think, I don't know, it's optional because it's just LangChain, but it is quite fundamental. Useful.
Yeah, Luda, I think you're making a good point in that although it is LangChain specific in terms of the capabilities, even just the way they break it into the different sort of buckets of procedural, semantic, and episodic memory, I think it is a good primer. And debatably, it could be a lower back pocket important article, just as something to reference to start to wrap your head around it. It is very short, and it does do a pretty good job of painting a picture of the different components and starting to get people to understand it. And I think in the months to come, very quickly, as it says in there, along with agents, memory is really the hot topic right now. So I could certainly be on the fence, but generally I was calling it optional as well.
But why don't we put it as important? Because I think this is a good primer, as you said. And Paul, are you okay? Would you support?
Great. No, love it. Important it is.
Fight us, Paul. Fight us.
No. I do think memory. Well, I think the important thing about memory, I think it's so important on the corporate application side as we keep driving towards more and more accuracy and nirvana of having all these great capabilities and great accurate answers. And so great. So important it is. Next article is from another vendor that we like, Anthropic, talking about the Sabotage evaluations for frontier models. They continue to hold themselves to high standards on responsible AI, and this is a new approach to that.
I got this one. I would consider this article optional, although it is equally fascinating and terrifying for me. I thought it was so very interesting to start thinking about the potential of these models and how do we even know if they are starting to either, as it says, sabotage human decision making, the code, hiding dangerous capabilities so that we aren't even aware of what they can do. I applaud Anthropic again for trying to get out in front of this and really being a thought leader in the space, but it is fairly, I guess, theoretical at this point, almost a research article. So I had it as optional.
Yeah, I agree with optional, even though it's certainly interesting what is happening in this space.
Yeah.
Trend-wise.
Great. It's optional. I do want to double underline, Adam, your kudos for them to getting it out there. I mean, I think it's an important topic here. I think this, a little bit like the other one we saw from LangChain, is a good overview. At least we're starting to get people trying to segment these fast-moving spaces in a curated framework. At least starts helping our get our heads around it. But boy, this stuff is changing quickly on the upside and the downside as well. And it's so easy to get taken away with the upside and forget the downside. So great, optional it is. And last one is our friends at IBM.
Yeah.
Granite 3.
Right. So IBM has managed to get $2 billion worth of revenue from generative AI, and they're very excited about it. And in fact, they are saying that this is the application that scaled the best, right, ever from their technology platforms of history. So they're pushing it again with the smaller models. And they're open source. And the reason that's unusual for IBM, but they're doing it because they really feel that, and under the Apache license that allows enterprises to build completely their own stuff on top of these models. And they're also announcing a set of other models, the multimodal models, in the same announcements. Again, very, very useful for folks who are using IBM. It is also on, I think, Bedrock, and so Amazon and another couple of
Hugging Face,
Hugging Face.
and Amazon SageMaker.
So this is quite broad. I was between optional and important. If another thing, Paul, if you scroll down to the end, they're talking in this article a very interesting thing. It's called generative computing, where you would no longer put prompts together, but it will be way better because it will have pieces of code instead of prompts. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is my loud phone.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was between optional and important.
Yeah. Well, let me make a case for important in this first day. I think, certainly I think from a corporate market, IBM was instrumental in its support of open source, eventual acquisition of Red Hat, and driving a lot of open source usage into the skeptical corporate IT department, 20 years ago. We've talked a lot about the trend we continue to see as companies really concerned about own your own intelligence and all the other aspects of that, having more control of that stack and when it gets upgraded, who has access to it, which employees have access to the. And I think in that sense, IBM's well positioned in many enterprises here. So if you're a large company as an AI leader, I think you need to know what IBM's doing in this area.
Yeah, I can support important.
Yeah.
This also gives that much more credibility. I mean, IBM is such a well-known foundation at the enterprise level that for them to be offering, an Apache 2.0 license to all these open source models, but then backed by everything they can do from a business perspective, it might give a lot more people confidence to own their own intelligence and go with open source versus, one of the other foundation models.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that I can't remember if we talked about it last week or I was just thinking about was it's really unclear to me where OpenAI is going to be going. I mean, if OpenAI is really going to lean more towards things that have rapid adoption, and that ends up being more B2C type applications in the crucible. So it's, it's global Expedia 2.0 type stuff. And the enterprise tends to be, as usual, slower adopting, much more pragmatic, much more control and things here that they may be naturally starting to bifurcate and really looking for leadership in the enterprise. And, you've got IBM and Microsoft and, maybe AWS and Anthropic. So
Yeah.
great. Good.
Yeah,
So
but,
we have a
but
good.
Paul, let me just. I think there's a correction. This is book. So I said $2 billion revenue. It might be book of business rather than revenue. So it's a correction, but it's a massive adoption. This is,
I'm always skeptical of that. I mean, I think the same thing happened this century. Every little AI project that was traditional, if you have a $500 million project that was traditional AI and 10% was generative AI, is it a generative AI book of business? But
yeah, but nonetheless, it's a lot.
Correct. I don't have the summary board, but let me give you the summary here. We have two importance. One was the memory for agents from the Lang chain, and then last one was the IBM one for the our learning lab tonight. We are going a group discussion on Nathan Benek's State of AI annual report. This is a report that he's done and his team for, goodness, maybe 15 years. It's super detailed, and we're going to collectively walk through it. And it's probably one of the most insightful summaries of a whole bunch of different trends, both on the research, the application, and the policy at level. So it'll be a great group discussion at 7 Eastern and 4 Pacific time. So thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic day, and we will keep the learning going as we're marching towards our 12-month anniversary for this daily show. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you, our participants, and thanks for your comments.